Hello, everyone. Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, STD3. Jimmy, it is Wednesday, November the 16th, 2022. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's Black Men Speak. So let's give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. Also to um, our own studio and Forest Films for subsidizing our virtual studio. And Tom, we are getting ready to add a new sponsor, RM Clothing Company.
all right.
Um, RM stands for Real Men. They're going to start sponsoring our show. And we're also going to give a shout out to ACD, uh, Affordable Community Developers. They build affordable homes. So they're also one of the sponsors. So, Tom, we're growing this show. And if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And please spread the word. Let other people know that we exist as we try to grow this channel. And so, Tom, of course, every week we bring on interesting guests. We talk about interesting topics. The most progressive show on the internet dealing with the issues affecting Black people. So, why don't you introduce our topic and let's get started?
All right, Jimmy. Thank you very much for that lead in, folks. We want to thank you for joining us this evening. And we would like your feedback on tonight's show. So, we are going to talk about issues in the Black community that are impacting us directly or indirectly. And, there's a lot going on in the news, Jimmy, but, you made me aware thought was pretty interesting and before, but I wasn't really aware of what was going on recently with the urban prep all boys charter school in Chicago.
Chicago Urban Prep. Yes.
Exactly. And we were talking about that recently. We had to do a little research on it myself. It's more of a localized issue, but it has, I believe, national for our communities as it pertains to the education and preparation of our young men in preparing to be successful for life. So let's kind of talk about your thoughts on this and see where this conversation goes. And then also we're going to talk about something that's been in the news for a while, Jimmy, and that's the whole issue with Kyrie Irving being initially for 5 games by the NBA without pay, mind you. But I think it's going on 5 to 6 games. They put these other items that they're saying that he has to do in order to get back installed with the New York Nets. And that's kind of a lingering, ongoing thing. And Jimmy, he didn't even steal $5 million from the poor community, Jimmy. But they're saying that he's got to do all of this stuff. So let's first talk about the charter schools, and then we'll go to Kyrie Irving.
Sure. So, Tom, Chicago Urban Prep, I don't know their entire history. I do know they started with the bar set really high. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Dunbar schools when they were created, with the bar set really high, and they had a graduate list. Tom, their alumni reads like the who's who of Black history. I mean, so these were schools that were pretty much created to provide a high school education to the grandchildren of slaves, of former slaves. So this is what urban prep reminds me of. And here's a school that for the last 8, 9, 10 years, I think 8 or 9 years, maybe longer, they've graduated 100% of their students. These are Black boys from the inner city, and 100% are going on to college to pursue a degree. Now, this is in a city, Chicago, and normally I would say this is not to embarrass the city of Chicago. The hell with that today. This is to embarrass the city of Chicago. How in the world do you have a record of only graduating 6% of Black boys who go off to college in the city of Chicago and expect that system to run and control and take over two schools that have graduated 100% of Black boys from their school, and not just graduating in time, 100% getting accepted into 4-year colleges. We're not
Yeah.
even talking about junior college. We're talking about 4-year universities and on scholarship. I mean, millions of dollars in scholarships have been awarded to these young men. And rather than saying, hey, we need to take a microscope, our notepad, our pencils, our pens, and go see exactly what these people are doing and replicate this across America, because I don't know any other school system, a public school system. Now, there may be some private schools out there that have similar records, but I don't know any public school systems in the inner city catering to young black boys with that kind of record.
Yeah, Jimmy, it's interesting statistics. And did you say 6%, Jimmy, or 60% when
Five,
you talk about
6%.
6%? Now
This is
that
how horrible the record is uh, for Chicago school system. And this is the last institution, Tom, that should be entrusted with the development of our young black boys. The last institution. You know, if you can't get your graduation rate up to, I don't know, maybe 50%,
70%. I would say at least
60%,
70, at least
you know,
70%.
maybe if you were over 50, we can say, okay, we can kind of trust you a little bit on poco, like my Hispanic brothers would say. But when you had 6%, no, you don't get an opportunity. You shouldn't even be part of the conversation, Tom. Not part of the conversation as it relates to a solution. The solution is already in place. We need to find a way to protect that program, to save it, to fix whatever problems that they have financially and administrative with their paperwork, but it needs to be replicated across America.
Well, Jimmy, in full transparency, when you look at the issues that I don't know how far back this has been going on, but the issue for folks who may not be aware of this is that there are some allegations or an investigation of what they call financial impropriety that led to them not being able to make payroll on a couple of occasions. And I think there was also allegations, Jimmy, that there was an inappropriate relationship between the former CEO of that charter school who has resigned. I don't know how long ago he had resigned, but there was
He just recently resigned.
Okay, of an inappropriate relationship, and I believe he resigned as CEO and on the board as well, and there was financial impropriety. But from what we are seeing, and this has primarily been on the local news in Chicago, from what they're saying, these were things that had happened some years ago, and so
2015 and 2016 school years.
but for whatever reason, it's now, and I find that very interesting. And I don't know Chicago politics, as much as someone who is local, but the timing, I would say, at a bare minimum, is very interesting. And so, what we do know is that recently, in late October, I think it was the 26th, that the Chicago Public Schools, which matter of fact runs several different charter schools
Yeah.
in that district. I want to say there was about 93, somewhere in that range, charter schools, that they decided that they are going to revoke their charter and take it over. And so my question is, what is the true agenda? Is it really to clean it up and to correct, what has happened, or is there another agenda?
No, that is the agenda, Tom, to clean it up and correct what has happened. But the cleanup part is to reverse this success that we're seeing. The system does not want anyone to realize that there is no reason that our young black boys are not being educated. Chicago Urban Prep is showing you how to do this, showing you that this is possible. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, Tom, just outside the show. And I believe you showed me a study that outlined some things that need to be done. They talked about Head Start. They talk about grabbing kids in elementary school. Making sure they come from two-parent household. It'd be nice if they went to more, I guess, moderate to upper income schools schools in these areas. So they outlined all these things for how to educate a young black boy, and somehow Urban Prep is doing it without any of the expert recommendations in place. These kids do not come from upper echelon families. And it's not to embarrass their families, but it is what it is. This is the south and west side of Chicago. They don't come from high earning families. A lot of them don't have fathers in the household. Some of these kids talk about their fathers being in jail. So these are not these are the kids that you normally would write off. But somehow Urban Prep is finding a way to educate them, which lets me know, Tom, we should not accept any more excuses from any school district around America as to why they can't educate black boys. The blueprint has been established. So I believe before this kind of picks up momentum and people started demanding and expecting more from the school districts around America, it's best to go ahead and destroy this one right now and get it over with. Say, Tom, we have a video clip. Let's play that real quick, and we'll pick it up on the backside of the video. Here we go.
Sounds good.
This time we travel to Chicago to attend the graduation ceremonies for Urban Prep Academies at the historic Lyric Opera House in downtown Chicago. Urban Prep's focus is on getting young black men into and through college. The Urban Prep Academy's charter management organization runs 3 public charter high schools serving 2,000 African American boys. For the last 8 years, 100% of their graduates were admitted to 4-year colleges. That's 1,350 Urban Prep graduates admitted to college. Urban Prep Academies and its founder and CEO, Tim King, are school choice all-stars. He spoke to the graduates about the musical Hamilton, where black and brown actors playing the founding fathers rap and sing about their lives.
A few weeks ago, we took the class of 2017 to see the musical Hamilton. The reason we were so bent on making sure that our seniors had the chance to see the show was because of how relevant its message is to these young men's lives. 2 of my favorite songs are History Has Its Eyes on You and My Shot. In History Has Its Eyes on You, George Washington is telling Alexander Hamilton to act intentionally and with care because everything he does matters. His actions will change the course of history. For our students, because of who they are and where they come from, what they do really does matter, not just to themselves, but to our entire school, to our organization, to our city, to our world. So, we founded Urban Prep because we were really concerned about how are we going to change the trajectory of these students? How are we going to get more young black males into college? When a student comes to us, that's what our goal is with them. We know that that's important because if they manage to get through high school and get into and get through college, they're going to end up making more money. They're going to end up living longer. They're going to end up with better job opportunities and better job prospects. And even more than that, they're going to end up changing the entire trajectory of future generations. So they're going to literally change history, not just their history, but their family's history. These lyrics from my other favorite song, My Shot, best communicate relevance to our graduates today. I am not throwing away my shot. I gotta holler just to be heard. With every word I drop knowledge. I'm a diamond in the rough, a shiny piece of coal, trying to reach my goal. I am not throwing away my shot. Only 6% of young black boys who start out in a public high school in Chicago are going to end up graduating and getting a college degree. 6%. You got a shot, right? When you are a black boy from the hood and you're in 9th grade and you're entering Urban Prep, you've got a shot. You've got a shot to make it through high school. You've got a shot at Urban Prep to make it into college. You've got a shot to get through college. Don't throw away that shot.
Please welcome Urban Prep's Inglewood campus, class of 2017 valedictorian, Mr. Malik Johnson, who will be attending Georgetown University in the fall.
As young black men, we have worked for improvement of our families, communities, and ourselves. Since I was young, I always saw people, they always wait for someone else to come to the community and help. But as we can see, none of that help came. As the great Gandhi said, you have to be the change you want to see in life. We have to be the ones to change ourselves and our lives and our communities. As black youth, we know the struggle that our generation goes through. With our knowledge and experience, we should use that and come back and help the generations after us.
The problem I wanted to solve when I started Urban Prep was to make sure that there were going to be more black males who were going to and through college, more African American men with college degrees. We can't have a successful society when you have a group of people that are such a small group of people who are achieving something that we know equates success. We know that if you have a college degree, you're going to make more money. We know that if you have a college degree, you're going to have less contact with the criminal justice system. We know that if you have a college degree, literally you will live longer. Yet we have a segment of our society where only 6% are achieving that milestone. So if I can have if I have a chance to solve that problem, then I'm going to do it. And I think that urban prep is just one. It's not going to change it all, but is an answer to this problem.
If you shop.
Sorry about that. We're going to cut the video off. So, Tom, once again, if you listen to what Mr. King was saying, the goal was not to just get these kids through a program. It wasn't just to give them a piece of paper, saying they've mastered some watered down inferior education curriculum while they're in high school. He said their goal was to get in college and to graduate, to get a degree in their hand. That's a very powerful statement when you set that as your goal for a kid coming in the ninth grade who has most likely a very inferior education through elementary and junior high. It's not like you're getting national merit scholars coming in urban prep, but you're getting quality college students coming out of the program, going off to college to earn their degree. That's their mission statement. That we're preparing you for your shot to go to college and to earn that degree. If you don't come back with a degree, you fail. I mean, how many schools have that as their mission statement that serve young black boys in the inner city?
Jimmy, I can't say that I know the answer to that, but it might be a short count.
Maybe a short count or no count. And I think the threat of urban prep, excuse me, guys, I'm still fighting the bug. The threat of urban prep and to Mr. King and his program is the fact that if more people were to understand that the minds and the brains of young black boys are not inferior, that you give them a challenge. In fact, Tom, you look at some other videos and stories that are done on the curriculum. And I would encourage everyone to go out to the YouTube and watch some of these videos. Tom, they take 2 English classes every day. They take advanced math, algebra, trig, calculus. They take a foreign language. They have to do community service work. This is not a watered down math for dummies program, English for dummies curriculum so you can go out there and play high school football. This school, everything about this school is about learning. And then I want to talk about the dress of these kids. Tom, khaki slacks, dress shoes, dress socks, white shirt, tie, jacket, every day. There's no sagging. There's no come to school dressed however you want to. There are no hoodies. These kids look, and then on their jacket they have their coat of arms or their crest for their school. These kids look the look, and so they walk the walk. If you look like you're someone who's intelligent, and people are now looking at you that way and expect you to behave as if you're an intelligent person, to speak intelligently, to think critically, if this is the expectation and you're living up to that, that's a very powerful tool to have in your arsenal. Versus kids in many of these other public schools that come to school dressed any way they want to. There's no expectation placed on them to even graduate high school. They're just there so the school can collect the fee from the state for them being there. And so Tom, we need to do whatever we can for everyone who's watching this show. If you know someone in Chicago, please reach out to them. Everything needs to be done, Tom, to save this program. And to not just save it, but to replicate it. We need Mr. King to be a national spokesperson for how to educate young black boys.
Well,
It's either this or send them off to prison.
I'll say this much now. Given the circumstances, I don't know if King is going to Tim King is going to be the appropriate person right now. But I would say this: the community definitely has to get involved. Obviously, this is more regional issue, but it has national implications. But the question is this: Chicago Public Schools has already voted unanimously to revoke their charter. They're going to be taking control of that school. Yeah. And of course, they have reached out to Mayor Lori Lightfoot to use her influence to reconsider revoking of their charter, maybe not directly because she doesn't have control over the school district, but obviously she does have leverage through her political connections in terms of how do you fix what needs to be fixed with this school without sacrificing what it is accomplished. It's been around 20 years, Jimmy, only 20 years. But how do you fix what needs to be fixed without compromising the integrity of what they've done, which is unheard of nationally, Jimmy?
Tom, what needs to be fixed?
Well,
the charges against Mr. King, I don't know if they're true or not. It's between him and whoever the student is.
Right.
But the stories that I've heard...
Well, he already resigned, so that's a done issue. He's already resigned. But the question is this.
I think he resigned to try to save the school before the vote.
Exactly.
If maybe I separate myself and take myself out of the equation, maybe that would be enough to save the school.
And it already happened. Chicago Public Schools
already happened.
Chicago Public Schools has already said we're going to take over. So the question is, what's next? Because I don't know that he has that much leverage. So the question becomes, who does have the leverage to ensure that the integrity as to what the foundation built for this school and the young men who are attending this school is not compromised and becomes endemic of what you're seeing in a lot of urban schools, including the one, of course, that he mentioned, Chicago, where he said only 6% are graduating. We don't want that to happen to this school because obviously when these young men, you hear what's coming out of the mouths of their parents in terms of the impact it is having on their lives. You don't want to lose that. What is the community's role and where do we go from here, whether you are local to Chicago and or outside of their region?
Well, the school board is going to keep the school open this year. And then next year, they're going to integrate it and merge it into the greater school system of Chicago at that point.
Which means, in essence, Jimmy, that it will probably no longer be an all-black boys charter school in function. Correct.
That's right. It'll be closed down at that point. And Tommy, reminds me of the DC voucher program in DC, another program that allowed young black kids in high school to go to a private school paid for by the government. I think $10,000 per student, which is a drop in the bucket to what private schools in DC would charge. But they would accept the payment in full. And this was a successful program to educate inner city black kids, to let a few of them get out of the system. And DC had some of the worst school system in America. And, Mr. Obama somehow found in his wisdom that this is once again a program that needed to be shut down. And so, Tom, all I see is every time there's something that has a positive track record that really is helping black kids get up out of this system that we know is not educating them properly. Somehow the powers that be, white and black, shut the program down. They find a way. Now, I don't know if the charges against Mr. King are true. If they are true, charge him. Charge him. If he had an inappropriate relationship with a student who was only 16, charge him for rape and be done with it. If you're not going to charge him, then stop talking about it. Stop using that as a predicate to shut the school down, taking over as if he's a monster out there victimizing kids. If he did it, charge him and move on. And as far as the financial issues with the school, they said that was a 2015-2016 school year. But Tom, that's 6-7 years ago. Why is that still an issue if you've been renewing their license every year since then? Why going back to that period and saying, oh, you had a problem back then, and so now we need to shut you down? No, you should have made that issue in 2015 and 2016. if they've corrected the issue and fixed them. If you don't believe them, then just order an outside audit to be done. Bring in your own CPA to serve as CFO and keep it out on the books. You can put them under some spotlight, under some magnifying glass for a period of time until you're satisfied that they can do this competently. But you don't have to take over the school, one of the most successful programs for educating young black boys, and you're going to destroy it over money, over a sexual charge that you haven't filed charges for or proof, and where the student is not recanted that it even happened. Come on, Tom. I mean, on what universe does this sound right? And then I want to say this, that the video that we saw was from TV One. I think that's her name.
Yeah, some years ago.
And so we did use the clip under the Fair Use Act. But our frat brother, Roland Martin, he was a narrator for that video.
Yeah.
And so I'm amazed at all of the programs, all these TVs, news stations, who were celebrating the success of this school. Where are they now?
Where you at?
Where's the voice? Where's TV One now? Roland Martin to be calling on the folks that support that network to do something about this, to use your voice. We can rise up, Tom, and protest and ride because of Michael Brown and George Floyd and the others. We can certainly come together and find a way to save really the only institution in America that's serving inner city black boys and producing. They're not just serving them, Tom, and collecting the money. They're producing results. It is almost crazy to even fathom that a school could do this in the inner city of Chicago. And so since it is being done, it shows it can be done. For all you folks out there thinking that, these young boys, black boys, they don't have the brain, we can't compete with the Asian, they don't think, thug life is pretty much their future. Here's a light at the end of the tunnel, Tom, that says different. That we can educate black boys, that young black boys can become scholars, can get a degree, and all those things that go with that, the job, the money, longevity in life, staying out of the criminal justice system, probably, not having 8, 9, 10, children and baby mamas that you can't afford. This just goes to show what can be done, Tom. And this is the one issue and this time that's worth fighting for.
I can't disagree. We want to thank Edward Willis for joining us on the chat line, and he made a very interesting comment. Why wouldn't the state senator or state board of education not get involved, with this important of an issue?
Tom, I think your actions speak louder than your words. I think, and I know this is a touchy subject. I'm going to say it anyway. Until the white liberal slave master of America said that this is okay to protest, to get upset about, and to do something about it, black people are not going to do anything. They're going to quietly sit back and let this happen. You may mumble and grumble about it. You may speak under your lip, but until you give them permission, those who control the thinking, especially thinking of black women, because that seemed to be where the control of the black population, the black populace is, in the voice of black women. So you get to them and you can pretty much control black America. And until the black woman is given permission to protest, to be upset, all you're going to have is just a few parents in the Chicago area. But as a whole, we're going to sit back and let this happen and not say a word. Roland Martin's not going to say a word. None of these celebrities, hands up, don't shoot, are all over the place for Michael Brown. And Michael Brown was not worth fighting for to the degree that we came out and supported. George Floyd, crackhead, we went out and supported. Not to say that we are encouraging white cops to shoot black kids, but this issue of saving an institution that is serving young black boys, to keep them off the streets, to keep them from being engaged with white cops in this way, is worth saving, Tom. And where's the noise? Where's the protest? There's none. None. So before I know we got another issue we want to bring up. So I want to play one more video, Tom, and I want to pick
And
it
we'll
up
close it
the
out.
conversation on the backside of it.
Okay.
Let's do this real quick so we can move on to Kyrie, because that ties into this also.
Yes, it does.
For years, the city has celebrated Urban Prep Academy for its graduation rate and countless other accomplishments. Well, now leaders at that school are calling on the mayor for help. They're trying to fight off a push by Chicago Public Schools to revoke the charters for 2 of its schools.
CBS 2's Sharday Gray is outside of Urban Prep Academy in Inglewood. Sharday?
Well, Jim and Marie, CPS plans to take over the charter school because of numerous problems. Urban Prep wants Mayor Lightfoot to intervene and stop the plan.
And now we attended Howard University.
Seton Hall University.
That was in 2019. Urban Prep Academy, the only all-male black charter school known for its 100% graduation rate, is now in the line of fire and in danger of losing their license.
What you cannot believe is CPS.
Anger filled the auditorium at the Urban Prep Inglewood campus today. The Chicago Public School Board is expected to vote tomorrow to take over the Inglewood and Bronzeville campuses.
They have the audacity to think that they could be successful taking over Urban Prep and turn it into a program of another CPS high school. It is both ludicrous and infuriating.
But district officials laid out an extensive case against the school. Failures include only 1/3 of teachers are certified, no services for disabled students, and mismanaged finances.
Many of the issues that they're referencing are from years ago, and it's worth noting that in those years since then, we were approved and renewed each of those years.
He's talking about fiscal year of 2015 and 2016. They say since then they haven't had any issues. Earlier this year, Urban Prep's founder, Tim King, was forced out after CPS learned of a possible inappropriate relationship with a 16-year-old student. That investigation is ongoing. The school says this is retaliation.
We believe that CPS is unable to separate, our former CEO and founder from what's going on currently at Urban Prep, from the Urban Prep leadership that currently exists.
The school board is set to vote on the issue tomorrow. Staff and students from Urban Prep Academy says they plan to attend. Reporting in Inglewood, Sharday Gray, CBS 2 News.
Okay. So yeah, that covered some of the information, Tom, that we already covered. The charge of sexual misconduct of the student, although no criminal charges have been filed. The fiscal problems that they had in 2015, 2016, which the schools say they have corrected. My point is that even if you don't believe them, you can bring in an accounting firm to audit the books. You can place in your own CFO to keep an eye on the books and the checks and the money, and report back to the Chicago School Board with a report to say either they're doing things correctly now, things are either on a good track, or there's still money missing and things going on that I haven't been able to root out, and there's still problems here. But to take over the school and to pretty much kill it, that's what's going to happen after the school year. The program will be dead. To do that is basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Jimmy, I find it pretty interesting when I was looking at the list of things they were talking about. 1/3 of teachers certified, no services or programs for disabled students, mismanagement in fiscal affairs. And again, some of this is dated allegations, which they are saying have been corrected. Ultimately, I think that they made that vote because they had the power to and they could. And what that leads me to understand is that there was a lack of leverage for those, who benefited from this program, who had a position of power or didn't have a position of power to do anything or make the changes necessary to ward off this vote. But obviously, if the community of those who have a vested interest in the outcomes of these young black men did not have the power, that's really, truly the problem that we're dealing with here. And if Chicago Public School, a little representation from the community that is represented in that school, which they said it's predominantly run by Black men, by the way. And we've already talked about the fact that in the majority of our schools, whether they be urban, suburban, or rural, you have a dearth of Black male presence in most of these schools. But this one that does, and you see the results. And yes, there are some issues, and those need to be corrected. But at the end of the day, you cannot argue with the results over the period of time that they've had it over the last 20 years. And, there is a song that went out there, after graduation, in the area, where they were fighting back. It goes back to a school when we were both in college, Jimmy. Pretty popular song by Public Enemy, "Fear of a Black Planet." It's the first thing that this makes me think of.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Tom. And I want to say this, that no way is this show, Black Men Speak, trying to defend any bad action or wrongdoing by Mr. King or by the school leadership as far as their finances. That is not what we're saying. We're not saying overlook those things. We're not saying that there are minor things and just look the other way. For anyone who's broken the law should be punished. And if the school has mismanaged money, they should be punished. But the punishment in this case, Tom, you have to think about the young men that go to that school. You can't help but be impressed, just even without even knowing them, just looking at the dress. I mean, they look the look of young scholars. You don't look in that on that video and see anyone that you'd identify as a thug or a problem. And so who are you a threat to at that point? If someone looks and says, "Oh, yeah, those urban prep kids, yeah, they look kind of threatening," well, that's a threat to the educational system, Tom. That's a threat to the power structure of those kids graduating from college and with a sense and duty to come back home and to make a difference. So some of the teachers at urban prep or graduates, as they graduated from college, have come back to the school system to give back. And just think, if you keep repeating that process across the landscape, how powerful that could be. You say you need more Black male teachers in the school system. Well, here's a school that's doing their part to produce those teachers. Some of the young men are coming back to give back to the community. So, so surely that can't be a threat to anyone, but yet it is. And I commend that
it is a threat.
Yeah, we've talked about this, and you tend to say racism. I tend to say group survival, but it doesn't matter. It is what it is. There are people who are threatened by seeing any kind of Black success, especially from Black boys, from Black men. If that was all girls school, this wouldn't even be a problem. Because the Black woman is shown that she is controllable. But Black men is where the fear is, Tom. That's where the threat is. So any program such as urban prep that is producing this quality from inner city schools, we have to shut it down before some of these people decide that we can do this across America. We convince them that it can't be done, that some of these young Black boys are just lost. I mean, hell, they even had me believing it. You and I have had this conversation where I was ready to just write off a whole generation of young Black boys and say, we pretty much have to start from the womb now and start over. But, but urban prep is now had given me some encouragement. That encouragement now may be lost because if you now demonstrated that if you step out of line, this is what happened. And I think this is part of a bigger picture also, Tom, that's not just limited to urban prep. This may be a good time to segue into Kanye West and Kyrie Irving and others. It's not just these two. It's just these two are the latest. But this has been going on for a while, that you step out of your lane, you say the wrong thing, you advocate for the wrong thing. And not only can we cancel you, Tom, we can take your entire life away from you, your livelihood. And for what? For having an opinion? You're going to force me to apologize for something I didn't say? And even when I capitulated and apologized,
that wasn't good enough.
For $500,000 to the Defamation League, which is a Jewish organization that fights against racism directed at Jews. It still wasn't enough, Tom. They still told him you got to jump through some more hoops. You got to demonstrate that you're willing to mentally be in those chains that we set for you, because just doing the things that we asked you to do is not good enough, and you took too long. I mean, I think that was the owner of the Nets said he took too long to apologize, Tom. He took 5 days. Okay, well, you're asking me to apologize for a statement that I didn't make, and somehow, I'm trying to be a person of principle. I finally cave, and it's still not good enough.
Well, Jimmy, this is to your point. You look at the list of things that they said in order for Kyrie Irving, who is who we're talking about, to be reinstated by the Nets, reportedly complete the following step: issue a verbal apology and condemn the anti-Semitic film he shared. That is to assume that they have watched the film themselves. Number 2, share that apology on social media. Complete sensitivity trainings, plural. Meet with Jewish leaders in the Brooklyn community. Meet with Cy, who, by the way, is the owner of the Nets, and make a $500,000 donation to Anti-Hate Cause, which, by the way, he actually voluntarily was going to make a donation of $500,000 to the Anti-Defamation League. Rejected it.
Yes, they said no.
Exactly.
We don't want your racist money. And Tom, let's look at what's at the heart of this problem, of this issue. The movie, the film, the documentary. What is so racist about the point of the documentary? Whether you agree with the point or not, I mean, it's worthy of an intellectual debate, a scholarly discussion. We can't even have that anymore.
It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like you can have that, Jimmy, if you are Black and male. I mean, there was a film that came out some years ago, and it was very, very popular actor, white male actor. It was about Christ. And Jimmy, I know you probably remember this film. It was probably at least 15 some odd years ago. But all that being said is, when you think about the fact that he's already been suspended 5 games without pay. He didn't kill anybody, folks, but he was suspended without pay. But he's still, at this point, not been put in a position where he can get back and earn a living for his family. But on top of that, they put all of these other stipulations on top of him being reinstated so that he could play basketball, which is his occupation. Now, he didn't steal $5 million from the state that's supposed to go to. He didn't send pornographic pictures to a female reporter for whatever reason. He's not been accused of sexual assault allegations against anyone, or having an affair with anyone. He didn't even say anything in the tweet. And so he didn't do this on the job, on the court. He did this on his personal account. And so my question is this: when is enough enough? And then what is the Black community's response to this? And dare I say, there are a lot of folks out there who are beginning to push back on this now that he has made a public apology, regardless of how long it took him to make that apology, because he was standing up based upon his personal beliefs, his religious principles. If you look at the interviews that reporters had with him that were trying to bait him, he was standing up on his personal principles. But I guess you can't have any personal principles if it doesn't particularly agree with.
No, you can have the personal principles they give you, that they
That's
allow
my
you
point.
to have.
That's my point.
This particular movie, the whole point of the movie was that the Kush Empire were Black people, that the Ethiopians were Black people, that the Hebrew slaves were Black people. That's your crime. We can't even have a discussion as to the merit of that theory.
Obviously not, Jimmy. Obviously not.
The point was is that the Europeans who occupy Israel today were not the chosen people. That the chosen people were exiled into Africa, enslaved, and that up to maybe 65% of the slaves that came to America were those exiled black Hebrews. So the point that they were making was that the black people in America are the true chosen people of God, and that they're the true owners of Israel. We call Israel today, of the chosen land. Okay, if you're a Jewish person, you may not want to accept that as a proposition, Tom, that now someone's out there saying that these black people who don't even claim to be Jews are the true children of God, when we've been convincing the world that we own that spot. But that is not such a, like you said, it's not murdering anyone. That's not stealing anything. That's a discussion that you have in the intellectual forums and circles, and where you present evidence from both sides, for and against, and you debate that. That's not worthy. If someone said, "Okay, I believe the theory or the proposition of the film," that's not to say anything. They're not saying anything bad against current day Jews. All you're saying is that I believe in the truthfulness of it. That doesn't degrade anyone. But somehow the sin of Jesus being black, of course we got to have a white Jesus in the church. The Hebrews being black, Moses being black. Oh yeah, then that's a problem that will cost you your job, your livelihood, and your life.
Yep, very interesting. So we have our longtime supporter, Mr. Collegiate F.V. Roberts, another act to emasculate the black man. Nothing has been done to Netflix that created the movie. And that brings up a very good question that a lot of folks have brought up. Well, okay, you have a huge platform out here, a global platform that basically has opened the portals for this film, but nobody's gone after Jeff Bezos. He's not in the news, or Amazon about this. Nobody's attacking them, but you have someone who has very little leverage and very little power. So the question is, what is this really about? How did this get this big? Is this not just making a statement? So, I mean, if you think about, we're going to make an example out of one person to make sure that we show everybody else, don't get out of line.
Well, Tom, I haven't heard the statement from Shaq, but I've heard others comment on the statement that he came out speaking out against Kyrie.
He did, and Charles Barkley.
Okay, but now you played this film in your theaters. You profited from this film.
Yes, he has.
If it was such a problem for you, why did you just say, no, I'm not going to play it in my theaters? I mean, this is the leverage. I don't care how much freedom you think you have in America as a black person. Until you truly break those mental chains, psychological chains, you are not free. It's not about money. I mean, these people are so scared to be canceled that the power structure can make them jump, scratch, do whatever. If I say you need to come out and speak out against this person, a person that you profited from it, so you're now in it more than the person that you're speaking out against. But no one's trying to cancel Shaq.
Well, that's because I'm pretty sure, Jimmy, that they control Shaq and his messaging. And so he is only relaying the message that they want him to relay. And obviously he does obviously have a very broad following. He has, of course, a lot of endorsements, and he is what you might consider to be one of those palatable, safe voice boxes out there. And that's why they would send someone out there like him, who probably never sat down and talked with Kyrie before he even made his statements.
Yeah.
So same thing with Charles Barkley. And Charles Barkley has a tendency to, be a little bit more balanced with some of his issues. And I mean, I think he's controversial by design, but he made some interesting things. But for Shaq to talk about this brother, calling him an idiot on a national platform, unacceptable. I mean, it lacks sheer integrity and respect, Jimmy. People may point at Kyrie Irving if you are of a certain ilk. And I understand patriotism and all this other kind of stuff. But there was a time, even though we talk about him now in a certain way, Ali is someone who was very unpatriotic, who was a threat to the fabric of American society, even though they talk about how great of a leader he is now, posthumously. But at that point in time, it was almost the entire country against Muhammad Ali because he felt in his religious and personal beliefs that signing up for the draft and going to war was against his religious principles. This reminds me a lot of that. And then the other thing, Jimmy.
But here's the difference, though. Ali stood his ground.
Yes,
he didn't cave. You know, if you want to take away everything I have, okay, fine. You won't give me a license to fight and earn a living, okay, fine. You know, I mean, he stood his ground, Tom. Where are the Alis of the day standing their ground?
Oh, even though I know that you might, scoff at this, Colin Kaepernick gave up his career.
Yes, he did.
He gave up his career. And the other thing that, I really scoff at when it comes to Kyrie, I think the NBA really pushed this. The question is, where's the black community? But more so, where is his community? There are a couple of NBA folks of visibility and celebrity, even though they are very few, that have come to support him. But, where is the day when you had somebody like a Jim Brown, a Lou Alcindor at the time, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a Bill Russell, who put their arms around his brother and say, let's sit down and talk and understand where it is you're coming from, what you're trying to do. We may not agree with you in principle, but we will sit down and have a conversation because we understand as black men that we have to be united. And if this is your personal principle and or religious principles, this is not religious that he's spoken to publicly, but if this is something you're doing for family, religious principle, let's talk about it. And let's not allow you to be attacked by other folks who do the same to us. And I'm just disappointed that I haven't seen more folks within the community, whether it be within the NBA, the NFL.
I mean, your outrage and your principles are given to you. They're selected for you on what you can be upset about. I mean, I can only imagine where Kyrie is going to be in the end of this. He's going to say, they accused me of making a statement against Jews, which I didn't. They forced me into apologizing when I didn't want to. They forced money out of my bank account, when I wouldn't normally write that check. It wasn't like he was donating to the Anti-Defamation League before this. So Tom, where does that leave a person when you strip everything from them? I mean, I've been there. I've been in the military. This is what they do. They strip you down to nothing, and they rebuild you the way they want to. Except in this case, the system is not rebuilding anybody. They're just stripping you down to nothing. And so when you have no principles, when you're left with a sense that I can't be a man and stand up for what I believe without having everything taken away from me, then in the end, you stop standing up. You won't fight. You won't stand up for anything. And that's the end goal here. And so if you can compel me to accept that men can get pregnant, menstruate, breastfeed, when I know that's crazy, I don't believe that. But if you come out publicly and say you don't believe that, you can be canceled. That young boys should be, just simply because they identify as a girl, should be able to compete against girls. You can force me to accept that when I know that there's no cell in my body that believes that's correct. When people can come and say, I got 10,000 pronouns that I want you to accept and call me. And some of these words are not even standard English. And so when you can force and compel speech on people, which in this country, we're supposed to have the freedom of your speech, which means you're supposed to own your speech. But when somebody can come and tell you that, hey, I'm the Jimmy Stewart, I only want to be referred to as the most intelligent man in the universe, and the most best looking guy ever walked the earth. And if you don't call me those two things, you don't use those adjectives to describe me, then you're going to be canceled. I'm going to call you a racist and you can be canceled. I mean, this is where we're headed now.
This is where we are, Jimmy. This is not where we're headed. This is where we are.
It is growing, Tom. So the black community need to, once again, circle urban prep. We need to circle the wagons around Kyrie and just say, hey, we support black men who stand up for what they believe. If you didn't say it, then you shouldn't have to apologize. And the net should not force you into accepting responsibility for something that you did not do. I mean, it's just wrong on every sense, on every level, and in every universe. And somehow they're going to make it right and keep pushing the issue and force that brother to just capitulate. But when they do, Tom, there won't be anything left of him afterwards.
Jimmy, I guarantee you, if in the NBA, which I believe is close to 80% African American, give or take, if these brothers, 80% of them, close to it, decided, if he did something wrong, that's fine, but we're not going to let you publicly humiliate this brother in front of the entire world. Enough is enough. And until you stand down, New York, until you stand down, Adam Silver, we're not playing. Then you come down to the economics. And when you come down to the economics, something has to stop. And that's where we have to be, not just this community performers on a field or on a court in this case, but even as a community. We're not going to agree on everything in terms of our politics, in terms of our religion, in terms of, some of our other nuances as individuals, but we have to find a common personal interest as a community where we have to put religion aside. We have to put certain other things aside for the common interest of our community, because not until we do that will we have the power or the leverage to say, we're going to save an urban prep academy. It may not be in our community, but these black boys is our business. We may not agree with this particular film that he happened to tweet, even though he said nothing about it, but we're not going to let you emasculate. We're not going to let you publicly humiliate or virtually lynch this brother, because that is our business.
That's it, a virtual lynching. That's a very good choice of words. That's exactly what's going on, Tom. And by doing so with Kyrie and a few others, now you set the example. Now, when Silverman or the league says, don't say this, or we think you said something inappropriate, so you need to go out and apologize, guess what's going to happen? All you can say is, yes, Massa, and go do it. Because you know the consequence that if you say no and don't do it.
So the question is not just to you, but to me, but to everyone out there. The question becomes, when do we set aside for the benefit of our community, whether it pertains to these young brothers and or this system that has produced exceptional results through a private school for young black men in Chicago, and or an individual who may think differently than you and I, Jimmy, but we still have a vested interest, because at the end of the day, if it could happen to him, it could happen to you or to me or anyone else out there. It's not just about us individually. And I think that is what collectively we must focus on. We are a keeper. We do have to focus on news that happens outside of our community, because it's easily it could happen to somebody else, Jimmy. It could happen to any of us, any of our households, in any of our communities.
That's true, Tom.
And so
we're right at the top of the hour, Tom. So
yes, we are.
Go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to just say this in closing, Tom. We may not save Chicago urban prep. It may be too far along for us to reverse. But here's what we can do. We can make sure that we honor the legacy of not only urban prep, but Paul Dunbar High School in D.C., Kentucky, Baltimore, Fort Worth, that started off as urban preps. With the bar set really high, graduating and educating black kids at an exceptional level. Tom, Dunbar High School was second only to the top prep school in D.C. in up and down the East Coast at their peak. They didn't open that school to compete against other public schools. They opened it with the goal to compete against the elite schools on the East Coast. And that's what they did. Urban Prep in Chicago did not start off with a vision of just finding a way to get kids through, young black boys, through a watered down curriculum and give them a worthless piece of paper saying you graduated. They started with the goal to create quality students to graduate and go to college and graduate and come back and be a service to your community. Tom, we need to make sure that if we can't save urban prep, and even if we can save it, we need to start going to the school board meeting and demanding urban prep become the norm in every school across America where you have a sizable black population of black boys who are dropping out of school who will be underserved. And if we can't stand up and do that, Tom, then that says a lot about us as a group. We deserve to be walked on and trampled and mistreated, and eventually we become third, fourth, fifth class citizens in a country that we may help make great.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Black Men Speak, talking about real issues that affect our community every Wednesday, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. We thank you very much for listening in. Go out there and make a difference, and have a good evening.